you so much for joining the Self-Sourcing HDR Internship workshop this morning. My name is Susan Schlinker, and I'm one of the HDR Industry Engagement Consultants in the Graduate Research Education and Development team at QUT. My main portfolio is looking after HDR internships, but I also manage the 3-minute thesis competition and the QUT Graduate Research Student Showcase. So if you have any questions for me about that at the end, I'm also really happy to chat about that. Before we get started, I'm sure you're all Zoom experts now, but this session will be recorded. And this session is actually going to be a little bit interactive because when you're self-sourcing an internship, you need to be able to communicate with industry partners. So we're going to give you a couple of opportunities that you can communicate in this session today. So you're very welcome to keep your video off and your mic off until we hit those communication opportunities, but you're very welcome to put questions into the chat as we go through. And also we'll be having a Q&A session at the end, and so we can answer any other questions at the end of the session as well. Before we kick off, I would really like to warmly acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to the elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits, recognizing that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. And QUT acknowledges the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. And also, I would like to extend my acknowledgement of the traditional owners of the land that you're zooming in from today, if it's a land anywhere else other than Turrbal and Yagara First Nations owners of the lands. Okay, so today, what are we going to cover? We'll look at what a HDR internship is, pretty critical question to understand, and obviously how to self-source an internship. And I would have to say that self-sourcing is probably how about 70% of our HDR internships happen. So I'm really glad that you've chosen this workshop to come along to, and we'll prepare you with all of the information and the models that you need to be able to self-source your own internship. I've also got some preparation tips for forming a relationship with an industry partner and pitching an internship to them. And we've also got Juliana Reis here, who joins me from the School of Biology and Environmental Science. Juliana undertook an internship with Clone Kripperberger, or KCB, last year. And so she's going to chat about her HDR internship experience and how she's self-sourced that opportunity as well. And then we've got some training and resources and support that I'll be able to share with you, and of course, the Q&A at the end. But before we start the session officially, I would really like you to start with the end in mind. And maybe you could pop into the chat one thing that you would like to get out of today's session. So feel free to pop that in now. It will help me to make sure that I cover all of the information that you want to know. And I can take your suggestions on as I move through the workshop as well. So feel free, don't be shy, pop something in the chat of what you would like to get out of today's session. So I'm from the Graduate Research Education and Development team, and if you've not heard of GRED previously, we are a team that's dedicated to providing optional learning and training development opportunities for HDR students at QUT. And we do this in 3 ways: through the advance, lead, and engage sections of the pie or circle that you can see on the screen there. So GRED really has 2 main goals, which is to help HDRs complete their thesis. And we have a dedicated language and learning writing support team with Kerry and Tasha doing that side. And then the second goal is to equip HDRs for life after their degree. And so that's where industry engagement and also our careers educator come in. And industry engagement, I'll talk to you a little bit later about this, but it is such a critical skill, really irrespective of whether you're intending to move into a career in academia or in industry after graduation. I'm just going to take 1 second to have a look at everyone who's put some great comments into the chat: where to begin the process of finding an internship, how to reach out to industry, And how does a HDR internship affect my candidature dates? These are all great questions. And Erica has just said, how to familiarize with the industry here as an international student. Awesome. I feel like I'm going to cover all of those in the workshop. And if you need any more information, just sing out in the Q&A session at the end, and we can go into a little more detail then. So I'm going to start actually with a video. This is Tara Shabab, who was a previous PhD candidate at QUT, and she undertook a really exciting internship opportunity with 3D printing. So I'll play this for you now.
My name is Tara, and in QUT I was a PhD student. I was working on 3D printed structures for tissue regeneration. So these structures, they can be implanted in patients' injury sites so we can regenerate the tissue. I was also working on drug delivery part of this research. So in the future, we can implant these structures in human body and reduce the chance of infection by this drug delivery system. During my internship, I was working on a design and development of surgical training models. So I was going through patient scans and turning them into 3D models. And then I was preparing them for 3D printing. So it is so important that anatomy and the realistic feeling of the patient, we had to mimic that with this plastic material, which was quite difficult and challenging and so interesting. So I was basically turning these patient scans into the 3D model and then 3D printing them, considering the anatomy and the material and 3D printing, and also considering what the surgeon wanted to do and the procedure of the surgery, so I could develop these products. Also, I had to work with different stakeholders, my project manager, the product manager, and also the customer, the surgeon who wanted to use the implant. So it was a mixture of communication and some technical, some software, some 3D printing. It was a mixture, combination of so many different things. You have so many interpersonal skills, transferable skills as a PhD student, and you can take them to the industry. You have learned how to troubleshoot, how to test things, and they are so valuable in industry. By the end of the internship, I was really sure that design and development of medical devices is something that I really want to do in my future. So I think QUT is really great for giving these opportunities to students, and I really encourage students to take advantage of it.
So I hope you enjoyed that short video. I think it's really great to hear of different student experiences, because every HDR internship is so unique and it's so bespoke. And so hearing from Tara and then also hearing from Juliana a little bit later today, I hope that gives you a couple of different insights into what a HDR internship could look like. I also neglected to mention at the start of this workshop that we're joined by the amazing Ivy Chen, also from GRED, and she is very kindly putting links into the chat for you as we go through for some of the, hey Ivy, thank you, for some of the resources that are available to you. So feel free to please click on those links as they come through the chat, and we'll be sending out all of the links in the post workshop resources for you as well. Okay, so let's start with the big question. What is industry? And, you know, sometimes I've had HDR students say to me, Susan, I'm not interested in advanced manufacturing. And I'm like, okay, that's really good for me to know that that's how you interpret industry. But industry is a lot broader than that. And it actually refers to any potential end user of research that's not limited to, but includes businesses, governments, government business enterprises, non-government organizations, not-for-profit groups, community organizations, and also social enterprises. So industry is so broad, any potential end user of research. And my question to you is there a particular industry type that you're hoping to gain experience with or in during your degree? And if so, please let me know in the chat, because I would like to know what you're interested in, and then we can help you from there. And then moving on to what a HDR internship is. So it's a short-term and clearly defined project that's with or for industry. the project agreement has to come through GRED, so you'll most likely be working with me to be able to facilitate your internship opportunity with your industry partner. So the project is between you as the HDR student and also an academic mentor. Your mentor can be your HDR supervisor, or it can be another QUT academic staff member who's got expertise relevant to the internship project that you're undertaking. And I will say that students in the past sometimes have enjoyed working with a different academic mentor other than their supervisor, purely because that in itself is a networking opportunity on its own. I remember Tara, the video that I just played you, Tara said that she worked with a different academic mentor, and the mentor just welcomed her into his group with his other HDR students and introduced her to some of his network, and she found it a really valuable opportunity. So just something to keep in mind. So the project's between you, your academic mentor, and the industry partner. It's a separate project from your thesis research, but ideally we'd like it to be relevant to your research in some way. But that again can be very broad, and it can be in the development or application of your research skill set. And you could potentially work in a transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary project. And I have to say that most students who have done a HDR internship in one way or another, at the end, they come out of it and they say, oh, you know, I thought I was working in this niche area and that was all I could do. And now the blinkers have come off and I can see that I have this research skill set that's applicable across different disciplines and across different industries. So having that experience can be really valuable for you as well. The industry owns the project IP of the internship project, and it can be a standalone project with an industry partner, or it could also be part of a larger research collaboration that's already happening at QUT. So for example, if anyone here is from engineering, feel free to say hi in the chat. I've worked with Professor Alexander Paz over the last year. We've done 4 internships, 4 HDR internships together. And he's also the chair of Transport and Main Roads at QUT. And so we've plugged HDR internships into those research collaborations that were already happening between QUT and TMR. So that's another way that you can undertake an internship. Internships can be 3 to 6 months in length, so 3, 4, 5, 6. And that really depends on the needs of the industry partner, what deliverables that they're looking for you to achieve within the project timeframe. So in terms of the mechanics, and I think this was one of the questions that we had come through the chat, and thank you for asking. So when you undertake a HDR internship during candidature, we work with the Graduate Research Centre, and we move you, or they move you from your thesis unit into IFN 004, which is the HDR internship shell unit. So you're still actively enrolled, you're still admitted as a QUT student, which is exactly what we want. You still have access to everything as per normal. So you're in IFN 004 for the duration of the internship. And that means your candidature clock stops ticking. And then when you have completed the internship and you're moved back into your thesis unit, all of your milestones are then moved back by the duration of the internship. So if it was a 3-month internship, the milestones get moved back by 3 months. And that's just because we really want you to have a fully immersive experience in the internship and not have to be trying to juggle a full-time candidature and a full-time internship at the same time. That's just way too unreasonable and stressful for anyone to do. And we want you to just really be able to focus on the internship and then not have any milestones that have crept up on you while you've undertaken the internship. So everything gets moved back. When your candidature is paused, it also means that your scholarship is paused. And this is why we ask industry partners to provide funding to QUT to support the internship. So instead of receiving your normal scholarship throughout the internship period, you're receiving funding from the industry partner. So that comes directly to QUT, and then QUT provide that to you as a fortnightly stipend while you're undertaking your internship. And yes, I've covered all of those points on the screen. So hopefully that answered the candidature question and the mechanics, and feel free to pop anything in the chat and I'll come back to it at the end. In terms of eligibility, when you can undertake an internship, you can see we've got the 4 different HDR degree codes on the screen. What they all have in common is that they require 6 months of full-time equivalent study. And then IF49 students also need to complete stage 2. ED11 students also need to complete the work in progress doc, and IF80 and KK59 students also need to complete the research project proposal before you're able to undertake an internship. And so starting the self-sourcing process early is really essential, because sometimes self-sourcing can take a little while. I think the longest that I've come across was 6 months that it took me and the academic mentor and the student to be able to facilitate one. So the earlier that you can start looking, the better. And then why would you undertake a HDR internship? Now, I'm going to say this, I'm not trying to scare you, but it's the reality of the situation. Around 60% of PhD graduates will find work outside of academia after graduation. And that has come from the post-COVID impact report that was released last year in 2022. So a HDR internship, it's an amazing opportunity to develop a whole range of skills. And I've got some of them on the screen there, including research articulation skills, industry engagement experience, research impact metrics, and so on. But I have to say, I think the most important skill or aspect that you come away from a HDR internship is evidence of your skills in the real world on your CV. I attended an industry panel with the Center of Data Science late last year. And there were 4 different industry partners on the panel, and every single industry partner said the same thing, that they want HDR graduates who can demonstrate how they have applied their research skill set in the real world prior to graduation, so that they know that they can apply their research skill set to do the job that they're looking to employ you to do. So that's what industry wants, for you to be able to come away with obviously your degree, but also evidence, something demonstrable, how you've demonstrated your research skill set during your degree, so that employers have confidence that you can do the job. But also, if you're moving into academia, industry engagement is an increasingly important metric for academic staff to be able to develop and report on as well. So really, irrespective of your intended career path, and as you know, one of GRED's objectives is to help equip HDRs for life after their degree. And whether you move into academia or into industry after graduation, having industry engagement skills gained through a HDR internship is really going to be critical and something to set you apart in terms of employment opportunities post-graduation. So how to secure an internship? Now today, obviously we're focusing a lot on section 2, how you can self-source an internship, but I also wanted to let you know that part of my role is to work with academic staff and industry partners to develop different HDR internship opportunities. And so they're listed on the HiQ website through the QUT HDR internship program. You may have also seen some internship opportunities through APR Intern, and you can apply for those as well. And then sometimes we have external programs such as the Nicolas Baudin program, that's internships in France, and other external programs. So there are a limited number of HDR internship opportunities that you can apply for. But as I said when I started the session, I would say about 70% of the internships that we facilitate at QUT are self-sourced by HDRs themselves. And I'm going to take you through these 3 steps today. of identifying potential industry partner contacts, how to establish a relationship with them before pitching the HDR internship opportunity to them. So why would you self-source? And I'm sure Juliana will be talking a little bit about this in her overview of her internship experience. But I think the best thing is you get to create the opportunity. It's your time to choose your own adventure. You also have the opportunity to practice really critical skills that you'll need after graduation, like establishing relationships and pitching. These are really important skills, again, irrespective of whether you're moving into academia or into industry, that you'll need. And when you just apply for an internship opportunity, you don't get to practice these skills. And I think self-sourcing is really amazing in terms of building your skill set out. And again, it can be a standalone project that you sourced with an industry partner, or it could be a project that you've sourced as part of a larger research collaboration like the ones with TMR that I mentioned before. So let's give you an overview. You've come to this workshop today and you go, yep, Susan, I'm keen, I'm ready, I want to self-source my own internship opportunity. What do you do? Where do you start? So the first step is to identify a potential industry partner, and I'm going to take you through an exercise soon on how to do that. The second step is to then form a relationship with the industry partner. This step, I'm going to pause here for emphasis. Step 2 is about getting to know the industry partner, giving the industry partner an opportunity to get to know you. You're not pitching the internship in step 2. Just forming a relationship with them. Step 3 is then pitching the internship. And again, I'll take you through how to do that. And then you participate in finalizing the internship agreement with me, complete the internship pre-requirements, and they take about an hour. And then you commence the internship. As I mentioned, you're in IFN 004, the HDR Internship Shell Unit for your internship. So the mid and the final internship presentations are your pieces of assessment for that unit. And then there's a couple of post-internship requirements and the post-internship survey. And then you receive your HDR Internship Certificate, which we very welcome you and encourage you to share on your CV, on LinkedIn, and that sort of thing. So the first 3 steps you do on your own, and then you can connect with me and I can then guide you through the rest of the journey and take you through step by step. And we work together as a team to be able to facilitate your HDR internship opportunity. So step 1, identify a potential industry partner. Now, what I would like to do, and Ivy's just shared the link into the chat for you, is we have a Padlet available. If you'd like to click on the link of potential industry partners, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Let me get my timer ready. And I want you to put everyone that you could possibly think of that is already existing in your network into the Padlet. If you can't access the Padlet for whatever reason, you can just do this on a piece of paper or open an email or a Word doc to yourself. But I'm going to give you 1 minute and I just want you to brain dump, just brainstorm and put everyone into that list that you think that you could approach to chat about a HDR internship opportunity. Okay, ready, set, go. You've got 1 minute from now. All right, 30 seconds down, team, 30 seconds to go. Fifteen seconds left. And stop. Okay, that's it. I hope that that was a really good introductory exercise to just help you think about anyone that you could potentially approach. And my other two recommendations is to converse with your supervisor as a starting point as well, because obviously they'll have a network and existing industry connections that they might be able to link you to. And to also build your personal brand before you start reaching out to industry partners. So thinking about your LinkedIn profile, thinking about having a professional profile picture or headshot, thinking about maybe on LinkedIn reaching out to people that you've worked with previously so that they can provide some recommendations, so that you're coming to industry with a little bit of content and background as to who you are and how valuable that you are. So if that was a little bit challenging to think of industry partners on the spot, here's a little bit of help for you as well in different ways that you could think about who to approach. So we've got some research peers, maybe recruiters, work and internship contacts, and industry contacts as well. I'm also going to give you my personal pro tip, which is sometimes you don't have to approach the CEO or the most perceived powerful person in the room. Sometimes some of the best connections that I've had have come from a barista or a hairdresser, because these are people that talk to people all day long, right? And so sometimes it's getting to know your hairdresser and saying, hey, you know, I like, who else's hair do you do? Is there anyone interesting that that would be relevant to my field of research? So that's my personal pro tip for you as well. Sometimes it can be perhaps the most unassuming connections that can actually open doors for you. So this is something that you can work through after the session and really make an extensive list for yourself on who is in your network and who you could potentially approach as a prospective industry partner. So now I've got a little bit of an adventure map for you. So this is what we've done, and this is what I would encourage you to continue doing after the session, having a look at the industry partner options in your existing network. So if you're in a position where you think, Susan, that minute, nothing came to mind, I have no idea, I have no network, I don't even know. If you're in that situation and you feel like there's no one that you can reach out to, then I would recommend the next step from here is to build your network by attending events and conferences and chatting to your supervisor about their network and chatting to your HDR peers about their network as well. I was just at this fabulous celebration on Tuesday night that the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, Christopher Barner-Kowalik, was at for the School of Earth and Atmospheric Science. And he was talking about how important it is to have a network and to have connections that you can reach out to. So if you're in this situation, my recommendation for you today is to start building your network now. However, if you did have some people that you could add to that list and you think, yeah, okay, I could keep going on that list afterwards and I could build it out even more, then the next step after that is to then categorize your industry partner options into A, B, and C. And the reason that I ask you to do this is because sometimes students might get really excited and they want to, reach out to their top choices at all first up, which I understand, right? It's a very exciting time. However, you are going to gain experience from reaching out to all of them. And sometimes it takes a little bit of experience to improve and to get better. So once you've categorized your options into A, B, and C, my recommendation is that you actually reach out to some of your B and your C listers first, because while you're getting that experience in forming relationships, then you're building that so that you can then come back to your A-listers with that new gained experience, that new gained confidence, and you can approach them with some evidence of what's worked for you previously and what hasn't. So then my next step after that is to do preliminary research on each of your industry partners in your A, B, and C categories, just so that you are not going in cold. You've got some background information on what they do, if they've, been in the news recently, if there's anything that they're celebrating, maybe they got a grant, or, you've got some background information that you can arm yourself with before meeting with them, and then begin contacting the industry partners by email to say, I'm interested, and I'll take you through how to do that a little bit later. So that's step one. Now, if you're in that situation where you feel like you need some help networking, there is a fabulous resource available called Employ Your Ability, which is free for QT students. These are just some of the modules that are available: connections, opening doors, creating and maintaining a powerful first impression, strengthening your connections. So I would recommend, if you're in that boat where you're like, I don't have anyone, I don't know, I don't think I have a network, I don't even know what a network is, start here. Start here, build some skills, and then start going to events and conferences, chatting with people, and building your network from there. And I want to really pause for a second here and just leave you with this fabulous piece of advice from Liz Minchin, who is the editor-in-chief of The Conversation. And she was actually our 3-minute thesis chair of the judging panel in 2021. And she gave the most incredible advice on being able to communicate with people in industry. And this is what she said. She said, many people in industry don't have PhDs, and it doesn't mean that they're stupid or that they need to be patronized. It does mean that you need to cut through the jargon of your field to be able to communicate your research in plain terms to a broad, non-academic audience. Smart and curious people won't be able to engage if they can't understand what you're saying. And I think this is such an important quote. When she said it, I was just like, yes, this sums it up perfectly. Because sometimes, and I completely understand, you might go out and maybe you have some nerves because you think, oh, I want industry to think that I'm really good. And so you throw in all of your technical jargon trying to look impressive, but then they kind of walk away thinking, I'm not actually sure what that student is doing. So I just wanted to drop this in as a personal piece of advice. And I think such a great tip from Liz, that when you are reaching out to communicate, just make sure that you're communicating on a level that they can understand and engage with you. And that will be much more successful than just going in trying to sound like, the best of the best, and then perhaps not understanding some of the terms. Okay, so step 2. So we've done step 1, which is to identify prospective industry partners in your network, or start networking to build a network. Step 2 is then to form a relationship with an industry partner. And the way that you can do this, so let's say that you go to an event. For example, I'm going to be at the QUT Commercialization Club event next Thursday night, where I'll be talking about the HDR Internship program. You're welcome to come along. You need to register, but you're welcome to come along. And so at that event, there will be industry partners there. So as you're networking and you're making connections, how do you get their attention? And you can do this with an elevator pitch. It's an introduction to you that grabs their attention, something captivating and relatable. It could be something that you have in common, but also to spark their curiosity. Tell them something that you've discovered in your research, perhaps, a summary of what you do, and then be ready for more questions. So I'm going to give you an example of an elevator pitch. And also it's good to have a couple up your sleeve, because I have one that I share to students when I'm talking to students. And then I also have another one that I share when I'm talking to industry partners. So I'll give you my student one. which is, hi, my name is Susan. I'm a HDR industry engagement consultant at QT. I look after HDR students undertaking HDR internship experiences with industry. And what I love about my role is being able to help connect students to opportunities and to empower them to see that they have more options available to them after degree than perhaps they originally thought of. So see how that was really short and concise. It just gave you a little bit of information about what I do, and hopefully it sparked your curiosity with especially me saying what I love most about my role. And it is, that's my favorite part of it. But hopefully also you wanted to ask more questions. So it's just a nice little introduction to what you do. And when I send out the resources, I've got a link there to some example elevator pitches for you as well. Now, we have, let's see, quite a few people in this session. We're going to put you into breakout rooms very quickly, and I'm going to ask you to put yourself out there. Yes, it's on the spot, but I would like you to do a 30-second elevator pitch. And you can also discuss your research topic as well, if you would like. So Ivy is going to pop you into breakout rooms of about 3 people in each room. And we'll give you 5 minutes to make something up, make an elevator pitch up on the spot, and to give you some experience in chatting to others as well. Okay. So I think you're moving into your breakout rooms now, and we'll see you soon. Hey, Ivy, we might need to move Erica into another breakout room, maybe into room 1.
I already moved her
Okay,
into
awesome. Yeah, thank
room
you.
5. So
Ivy, did you get the pop-up that someone's asking for help?
No, where did you get that?
It's come through to me. It's asking me to join the breakout room. Will that be okay if I do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, which room was that?
Room 3.
Room 3. They have 4 people in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to. I didn't get any message on my side.
I can see that they're having trouble connecting to audio.
Oh, okay.
So maybe
Uh,
that's it.
No, I don't think I can do anything here.Maybe if you want to join in and see what happened.
I'm nervous to join and then I won't be able to get back to the main room.
So 20 minutes? How long has been, do you know?
Oh
Sorry,
no,
I didn't.
I was only going to give them about 5.
Oh, I guess.
30 seconds each, you know.
Okay.
I think I won't respond to it.
Okay.
And we'll probably pull them back in 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, 1.5 minutes, and then that will give them 60 seconds, you know, before the breakout rooms close. Okay, I think we might pull them back now, Ivy.
You want me to close it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the 60-second countdown.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there another breakout room again?
No, we'll just keep it to the 1, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I think we've got nearly everyone back. We're just waiting for a few more students. We'll just give them the last 30 seconds to move back in. Okay, I think everyone's back now, so welcome back. So that in itself was a networking opportunity for you, and hopefully you can connect with your fellow HDR peers either on LinkedIn or any other platform that you choose. But that in itself is a networking experience. So you've already expanded your network for today. Good job. All right, so then we're still in step 2. So we did step 1, identifying industry partners that you could potentially reach out to. And I've seen that there's a few questions in the chat about that, and I'm going to come back to them in the Q&A session. But in step 2, it's forming a relationship with that prospective industry partner. So we've got you to practice your elevator pitch, and I hope that was fun. It's always more terrifying when you're put on the spot. So the worst is already over. You've already done it once, and you'll be able to do it a lot more confidently at events and networking opportunities in the future. And so how do you then go about forming a relationship with an industry partner? And the way that we recommend is through something called an informational interview. So this is where it's a really informal question and answer meeting between a person, yourself, who's seeking more information about an industry partner or about a specific role in an organization. And so you're reaching out to a prospective industry partner and saying, hey, would you like to get together for a coffee or a Zoom meeting? I'd really appreciate just 20 or 30 minutes of your time. My research area is this. I'm interested in your organization. I would just like a little bit more background knowledge. If you have any spare time, I would really appreciate that. So the things to bear in mind in an informational interview is do not ask for an internship here. Really just focus on, this is an opportunity to ask some questions, to get to know them more, and for them to get to know you. Now, the reason why I say do not ask for an internship here is because when you're sort of cold calling or cold approaching industry partners and you're just on email saying, hi, I'm a student at QUT, do you have any internship opportunities available? This will more often than not result in a no, because they don't know anything about you. And another way to think about it is that if I came up to you at the QUT Gardens Point bus stop and I'm standing next to you in the queue and I say, I'm just going to pick someone from the list of attendees today, Jaslyn. Hi, Jaslyn. My name is Susan and I work at QUT. Can I move in with you? You would say,
go for it. No, I'm joking.
Okay, Jaslyn's obviously very nice and open, but I think most people would be like, absolutely not. I don't know the first thing about you. You could be a complete psychopath. Are you clean? Are you like, can you
You're right.
contribute to the rant?
I would say that.
Yeah. So, industry partners, I'm just making this analogy because often they feel in that sort of situation when you cold call on email or phone and you say, I would like an internship opportunity. They're like, I don't know anything about you. How do I know you're going to be the right fit for our organization? How do I know that you're not a risk to our organization? How do I know that you can contribute in any kind of valuable or meaningful way? So this is why having an informational interview is so important, because it's just your opportunity to just, in an informal way, ask them a few questions about their organization. And through the conversation, you can give them some information about you, your research area, a little bit about your background. They get to know more about you, you get to know more about them. And what you are doing is asking them questions that will later on help you pitch a HDR internship to them. So some questions could be, what challenges are you facing in your organization right now? Do you undertake research and development in your organization? Are there any projects that you're wanting to progress in this field? Questions like that, just collating some background information that might help you later on when you're pitching. So we've got some resources when I send out the PowerPoint to you of questions to ask, some information interview 101, and how to go about requesting and conducting. So you'll receive that all on email from me this afternoon or tomorrow. So there'll be a bit more information on how to go about it. But our careers educator has condensed her advice on informational interviews into these two areas, and I think they're so important. Focusing your attention on listening rather than speaking, and also to be gracious and assess their interest in maybe meeting again. She said for further mentoring, but you could ask them if they're interested in meeting again, because if they're like, no, that's it, that's all I've got time for, then they're probably not open to being pitched an internship opportunity. So that's some more information for you to follow up after the session as well. Now, we're not going to do this breakout room. I'm just going to move you quickly into step 3, which is about pitching the internship to the potential industry partner. So obviously you've had your informational interview. What do you do next? Leave it a couple of days. Don't be so keen. But then do get back to them and thank them for their time. Everyone's busy. And I think time is the most valuable resource that we have. So really genuinely thank them for their time and let them know what stood out to you from the interview, because then that shows that you paid attention and you value what they had to share with you. Then you can pitch the internship. And we have our HDR internship website and the program flyer. And I will attach them in the resources that I send you out this afternoon. So you thank them and say, you know, this really stood out to me. This really stood out to me. It could be things like, you know, I really heard you when you said you had this organizational challenge that you were facing at this point in time. And that's something that I could actually assist with through a HDR internship because it's relevant to my area of research. And then briefly demonstrate through evidence the value that you would add to their organization through an internship. And this cannot, like, it can be from your research background, of course, but it could also be in previous employment experience. We had a student last year who undertook an AI internship with Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art, Quagoma, and he had previously worked at an art gallery in Mexico, in his home country. And that was incredibly valuable for the industry partner to know. And actually, that was the thing that got him across the line in being chosen as a successful candidate. Then you can provide an industry CV, not an academic one, but an industry CV. And our careers educator has got more information available on that. And then ask them if they would like to be introduced to me so that we can talk more about the HDR internship program and they can find out more about how it works. Okay, so that is your self-sourcing model. Now I would really like to introduce our MPhil candidate, Juliana Reis, to discuss her HDR internship experience with KCB. And Juliana, I'm going to stop sharing now and feel free to share your slides and take it away.
Thank you, Susan. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so I am Juliana. I'm a Master of Philosophy student at the School of Biology and Environmental Science. And I had an internship, HDR internship with KCB last year. I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about my experience. So my workplace was Cologne Krippenberger, also known as KCB. So it is an engineering, geoscience, and environmental consulting firm with offices in Canada, US, UK, Peru, Brazil, and Australia. And they deliver projects in mining, hydropower, transportation, infrastructure, and energy. I was interested in having an internship experience at KCB because the company has both engineering and geosciences teams, and I have a bachelor's degree in environmental engineering, and now I'm doing the MPhil, which is focused in groundwater conceptual and numerical modeling. So I thought that an internship at KCB would give me an opportunity to find an interface with my bachelor's degree and my MPhil degree. KCB is a company renowned for technical excellence. They are a multicultural environment and they have offices in different countries. So this is why I found them a very interesting company to have some experience. And the process of self-sourcing my internship started in my first semester of the master's degree. So I've always wanted to have an internship experience in Australia. So at the end of my first semester at QUT in 2021, I was actually invited by my research supervisor to attend a networking event, which was organized by the International Association of Hydrogeologists. So there was a Christmas party at the end of that year. And so it was a bit of an informal environment. So everybody was friendly and easygoing. So it was a good opportunity to me to meet some hydrogeologists, and at that event, I got some business cards, just like talking to people. So people were actually very friendly. So it was easy to approach them and say, oh, so I'm a student at QUT. I'm looking for I actually didn't mention that I was looking for an internship immediately, but that eventually came up in the conversation. So I got some business cards and exchanged LinkedIn contacts during that event. So I was still in the beginning of my master's, so I decided to wait a bit more to actually start an internship. So after 1 year of my studies, I reached out to the KCB Geosciences manager in July 2022. So I was actually very straightforward to him, and I said, "Oh, so we've met at this event, and I'm actually looking for a HDR internship, and I would like to know if that would be possible with KCB. Would you have some time to talk about that?" And he gave me a positive answer, actually. So he scheduled a meeting for me to talk to him and to other geoscientists from his team. So I went to KCB, I think 1 week later, 1 week after I had this conversation with the manager on LinkedIn. And we had quite good conversations. So they focused the conversation in getting to know me and understanding why I wanted to undertake an internship. So they didn't actually define any requirements that I needed to meet for the internship. And I think they liked my attitude of reaching out to them and wanting to have a practical experience. And one other thing that was in my favor is that there is a high demand for hydrogeologists and groundwater modelers at the moment. So due to all of these reasons, I got the job. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about my internship experience. So it was divided in 3 months. In the first month, I actually gave support to various projects. So I was not included in a specific project, but I was helping consultants with whatever they needed. So I did a lot of data processing in Excel, and I learned ways to do that more quickly. I also analyzed and interpreted groundwater modeling reports, did training in a software called CPW. And that training was via online tutorials and Q&A sessions with one of my managers. And in that month, it was a very interesting month because I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people, a lot of professionals, and it was an interesting time to adapt to the company and get to know the people who I would be working with. And then in the second and third months of the internship, I actually got really busy. So I worked into specific projects. The first one was about developing a 2D model for characterization of the seepage mechanism in a water dam. And the second one was about a 3D groundwater numerical model for the dam and its surroundings. And the main purpose of those projects was to understand the seepage mechanism in the dam and analyze how it interacts with the groundwater. The project outcomes would provide knowledge for decision-making on seepage prevention. So I had a lot of learning outcomes, and I've been applying them to my master's research. So few things I learned were seepage and groundwater modeling, calibration strategies for those models, planning and design of groundwater numerical models and hydrogeological investigations, critical analysis of model results, fast-paced data processing, and quick decision-making. I also built good relationships with my work colleagues. I interacted with other teams, not only geosciences, but also engineering and geotechnics. Had good confidence building. I developed the attitude to ask questions. This was something very important to me, actually. So knowing which questions to ask and who I had to approach when I had those questions. Also learned some planning skills to meet deadlines. So some benefits from the internship to my research degree and to my career were the internship helped me understand which of my skills I need to strengthen. So I realized I actually got more motivated to expand my knowledge in geology and numerical modeling because my bachelor's degree was in environmental engineering, which involved a bit of hydrogeology, but not too much. So I actually realized which of my skills I need to strengthen to get a job in hydrogeology, which is what I want to achieve when I finish my master's. The internship helped me discover what I want to do after I graduate. So I want to get a job as a hydrogeologist and work with multiple tasks. I don't want to do only groundwater modeling, but I want to work with a bit of everything from field work to development of groundwater numerical models. Networking. So I think it's very important to know the people who we will be eventually working with in the future and understand how to collaborate with them. And collaboration is very important. I met some people at KCB who are always willing to answer my questions, and I still talk to them today, and they actually are always very helpful when I have some questions about groundwater modeling. And so they've been very helpful with my master's degree as well. So this is the end of my presentation. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Juliana. Such an amazing overview of how you self-source that opportunity and the internship experience itself. I thought, why don't we open the floor to questions to you now? I'm going a little bit rogue with the with the format of today's session, but I just recognized that we've had a lot of questions come through the chat from other international students who are in the session today, who have asked, you know, how can they familiarize themselves with industry as an international student and questions like that. And so I just wondered, I might kick off with that question, just if you had any other advice, you know, for international students on how to commence the self-sourcing journey. And then if anyone else has any other questions to ask Juliana, please feel free to turn your camera and mic on.
Yeah, I answered two of the questions, and I think some general advice that I can give is that I think it's important to start building our network since the start of our degree, and supervisors can help a lot. So my supervisor was the one who took me to the event where I met someone from KCB who hired me. So she actually has a lot of contacts, and so supervisors can help. And I think just looking for people on LinkedIn. I know it can be a bit hard to do that. I feel shy about reaching out to people I don't know as well, but I've done that before. And I think LinkedIn is an interesting tool for sure. And so building a good profile, having a good photo actually helps a lot.
Such great advice. Did anyone else have any other questions for Juliana? While you're having a think, I'm just going to answer one other question that came through the chat. Daniel had asked, can internships be overseas? And yes, they certainly can be with international partners. We have some slightly different rules for international partners, but you can absolutely, as soon as you have a prospective industry partner that you're interested in and they're interested in you, just let me know and we can start that process. Okay, I might just follow up with a couple of the other questions in the chat before we finish the rest of the info in the session. So I've spoken about how internships affect candidature dates. Jaslyn had said, can we seek internships with organizations we have existing relationships with? Yes, absolutely, Jaslyn. And I think that that would be the most sensible place to start because you have a connection with them. And Amali, hi Amali, has said, I'd like to get some tips to know how to get further opportunities or extend opportunities once you get an internship. Amali, do you mean other internship opportunities after you've already had one?
No, what I was asking is kind of like, if because since like I'm at the latter part of my PhD thing, so I thought of like if I can go beyond that, like once finish the internship and how to broaden the opportunity, go through that sort of some tips for that. That is what I meant, like.
Yeah, well, we have a range of different industry engagement options through GRED. So we've just had the HDR design sprint, which was working with an ecosystem of industry partners that will be running again either later this year or next year. So I would say, keep your eye on the GRED emails for other industry engagement opportunities. But also one thing that you could definitely do is look at mentoring opportunities too, either with your current internship organization or with other academics at QUT, because I think that that's a really mentoring is I've had mentors my whole professional life at QUT, and I have to say that they have their own network that they introduce you to, and they have different perspectives and different events that they can invite you to. And it's, we always say at QT things can be a bit siloed. And I think it really is just getting out and making those connections across different areas. So especially if you have any transdisciplinary research, like, what Juliana said, where she chose KCB because she came from an engineering background. And so she felt, she could relate to them in that way, as well as in, in the science aspect. So I think that's looking for those sort of decisions. So I'd really recommend mentoring, Amali. Yeah.
Okay, right. Thank you.
No worries. And Jaslyn has said, I'm interested in seeking an internship with community health NGOs or NFPs. Is this within the internship rules? Yes, it absolutely is. Jaslyn, obviously one of the requirements for internships is for the industry partner to provide funding for the internships, and sometimes not-for-profits are not in a position that they can do that. But this year, the Senior Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, Professor Christopher Barner-Kowalik, has some fully funded internships available with specific criteria. So I would say reach out to me. Feel free if you have any prospective industry partners that are in that position that they don't have the funding, but they want to take you on, reach out to me, let me know, and I can connect you with the right people so that they can be considered for one of those small number of funded internships. Paula said how to reach out to industry. I think between myself and Juliana, we've probably given, some great advice. It sounds really basic, I know, but it is just really talking to people and going to events and, just being on that bandwagon of if you meet someone in your school kitchen that you haven't run into before when you're both microwaving your lunch or whatever, oh hey, what do you do here? You just never know where conversations can go, and actively look for networking events with industry. If you're also part of a research center, I know the research centers have some fabulous industry events that they put on, so it's talking to people, it's connecting with people on LinkedIn, it's being out and about and just giving people the opportunity to get to know you. How to familiarize with the industry here as an international student, Erica, it's a great question. And again, I think Juliana and I have really covered that. It's just talking to people, but also doing your own research, obviously having a look online if there's specific areas that you're interested in, and finding out what industry is a part of those sectors, and chat chat to your supervisor. They're just an amazing starting point. And obviously they're in your field, they have experience in that field. So they'll definitely be able to provide you with some organizations that are in your field as well. So if I'm new to Australia, how can I get familiarized with the companies? Okay, I think we've already covered that. And what if a student can secure a project but not funding from the organization? Okay, Mickey, same thing. Just let me know, because we might be able to get it. If it meets the criteria, we might be able to get it considered for some of the funded internships that are available this year. The industries must be from Oz to be able to participate. No, we can definitely have international partners as well. We just need to make sure that they're an appropriate organization. So just reach out to me and let me know as soon as you have one, so that we can vet them appropriately for you. And then how do I even start looking for relevant companies besides through my supervisors? Yeah, so again, LinkedIn and online research. Juliana, would you have any other suggestions besides that?
Not actually. I think it's mostly about talking to people, making your research online, start from Google, and then job online, job seeking platforms. And yeah, and I think going to conferences and events actually help a lot, because then you meet people face to face, and it can be a more friendly environment, because sometimes people are having a meal and they just want to have casual conversations. So it's easier to talk to them in those situations rather than sending an email.
Absolutely. And that's why step 2 of the self-sourcing model of forming a relationship with an industry partner is so critical. And that's exactly what you did at that Christmas party. It was an informal get together. So I'm sure, over some food or a glass of wine or something, you were, able to just have a chat. And that gave them that opportunity to get a sense of you, who you are as a person, your research area. And then when you reached out with that email, they were like, oh, yes, we remember this person, and her research area is really interesting and it aligns with our organization, and it would be very valuable for us. So it's you don't have to do the informational interview road if you've got an opportunity like that, where you are establishing that relationship first before you're asking for the internship later, just to give them a sense. Because I think had you walked up to KCB at that Christmas party and said, hi, I'm Juliana, do you have an internship? The conversation would have gone so differently. Yeah, they would have just been like, well, we don't know anything about you. So I think you've just provided such a beautiful model for other students on how they can go about forming that relationship before pitching. All right, I think we're all up to date for the questions in the chat. So I'm just going to move into the last bit of content for the workshop. And that's, so after you've, done your 3 steps and you're at that point of pitching, as I mentioned, it's also about knowing what you have that's relevant to them. And again, sometimes I see students that perhaps out of nerves, they just go, I want to tell the industry partner everything about myself so that I look really important and really impressive. But really what the industry partner wants to know is what you have that's relevant to them. What makes you different? Why should they choose you over the other 2,500 HDR students at QUT? So things that you can think about when you're pitching that internship to them is what relevant skills that you have. And I think Juliana gave, such a great synopsis of this with her engineering background. Education, you can even look back at previous unit outlines and have a look at some of the education that you've previously undertaken that might be relevant to the organization. Relevant employment experience. As I said, with Jorge, when he applied to Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art, he let them know that he had worked at an art gallery in Mexico, and they found that incredibly relevant to them. And that's what really set him apart. Even though he had a similar skill set to some of the other students that applied, they felt more confident because he had art gallery experience. So that was incredibly relevant. Your research topic, but I will say keep this very condensed, short and snappy. And again, as Liz mentioned, gave fabulous advice, making sure that you're using language and jargon that's accessible to a non-academic audience as well, if your industry partner is non-academic. And then if they want to interview you for a internship position, prepare for the interview by making a short list of examples. What are some of your achievements in your research topic or previous employment or awards, or publications that that you've had previously? What's relevant to them? Make a short list of examples and be prepared to talk about those examples in the internship interview if you've offered one. If you're not sure of your strengths, I would really recommend doing a strengths survey as well. QUT is not affiliated with VIA Character Strength Survey at all. It's just one that we find particularly good. So we're happy to recommend it. And I think that it's really eye-opening if you're not sort of self-reflective, to be able to be given a little bit of information on what you're perhaps good at and that you can promote when you're speaking to prospective industry partners. And then preparation for your interview and internship. So QUT has access to ACEN modules, Australian Collaborative Education Network modules, and they're free, they're online, you can do them in your own time. These are just some of them available: preparing for your work integrated learning experience, understanding Australian workplace cultures, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, and undertaking work integrated learning in an online environment. And that's particularly helpful if you're doing a remote internship with perhaps an international or a regional industry partner. And also, QUT has a fabulous platform resource available called Big Interview. And if you've not interviewed for a while, I was certainly in that case when I applied for this job. I think it had been 4 years since I'd interviewed for anything. And you can feel a little clunky if you haven't done it for a while. I would really recommend using Big Interview for some interview practice, and it's free, and it really is a great resource. So I know that we have a lot of international students here today, and there's been, some questions about how to reach out to Australian companies and organizations. And one thing that I often get feedback on from international students is understanding the Australian workplace culture as well. So ACEN have a module on that, and I would really recommend undertaking it because it can be a little bit different to your home country that you've come from. And you want to be prepared for that and to go in with making a good impression. So that's another free online module that you could be able to undertake before you start an internship. So where to from here? I would really recommend registering your expression of interest on the HDR industry engagement form. This is really helpful for me to help you. Sometimes I have industry partners reach out to me and they say, Susan, we have this project, we're looking for a HDR student, but we need it to start in 2 weeks' time. And I don't have time to promote it in the newsletters. So when you've registered on the form, I can then go through who's registered, who has a relevant research area or a background, and then I can call you and say, hey, I've had this opportunity come across my desk. Would you be interested? It also triggers an email to your supervisor. So that really helps as a conversation starting point, that you can say, yes, yeah, I attended this workshop about self-sourcing. I registered. I'm interested in undertaking an internship experience as part of my degree. Can you help me introduce me to your network, or do you have any organizations that you recommend? And then keep up with the GRED newsletters as well. So hopefully you all see these fabulous orange newsletters that come out every Tuesday morning, and they have internship opportunities that are currently open for application. But then they also have workshops that are coming up, and other industry engagement opportunities as well, like the design sprint that we just had. So that's a really good way to keep up to date with what's going on. And you can always reach out to me with more questions as well. If you liked this session, if you found this session really valuable, the next two that I'm running are coming up on the 11th of April. That one is on HDR internships when you're applying for an opportunity that's open and available, and that workshop focuses a lot more on how to apply and how to interview. So it's slightly different to this session, and I'd recommend that you come along to that one. And then we also have the introduction to the 3-minute thesis and the visualize your thesis workshop that's happening on the 4th of May, Star Wars Day, if anyone gets that reference. And so 3-minute thesis and visualize your thesis are two competitions that we have at QT to really help HDR students to develop their research communication skill set. I would highly recommend that you register for both competitions. We'll be opening the registration soon. And if you would like more information on the competitions, come along to that workshop. So I look after the 3-minute thesis competition. My colleague, Dr. Murray Lane, looks after the visualize your thesis competition. The 3-minute thesis is you're doing an oral presentation in a short, snappy, engaging way verbally. And the visualize your thesis competition is a 1-minute digital short to communicate your research and its impact. So they're amazing skills to develop while you're here as a HDR student. Okay, so before we move into the last Q&A session, I would love if you could complete the survey for this workshop. Ivy's just put the link into the chat for you now. It's 1 minute, it's anonymous. Please let us know what you liked. And we always have a look at your feedback to keep making the sessions even better. And my email address, if you would like to get in touch with me, is hdr.intern@qut.edu.au. And as I said, I'll also be sending out resources to you either later today or tomorrow from this workshop, the slides, and all of the links that I had throughout the presentation as well. So while you're doing the survey, I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat for more questions. So Emma's raised a really good question. Do they have to be full-time? Emma, they've always been full-time up until this point in time. We've not had a part-time internship previously. So it can be done, but I would actually really recommend doing a full-time internship purely because you get such a immersive experience working full-time on your internship project. And you've just got that peace of mind that you know your candidature is paused, you know your milestones are going to be pushed back, so you don't have to worry about juggling both at the same time. I think it's really in your best interest if you can. But if you're a part-time student, then of course we can have a look at organizing a part-time internship for you. And then I think the rest of the chat are the links from Ivy. So we've still got 6 minutes left of this session. Did anyone else have any last minute questions? Or not just for me, but also for Juliana. We've still got Juliana here. So if you have any questions for Juliana as well, please feel free to turn your camera and mic on or put your question into the chat. While we're waiting, Juliana, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah, sure.
If what would be your top 3 reasons that any HDR student should do an internship?
Yes, okay. I think first one, it's very important for people who want to work in industry after they finish their degree. Even if they don't want to, it's good to have a different experience from academia, because so I find university and industry very different environments. So there are different skills you need to use in each environment. So learning new skills. Also to meet people and to actually build your network, and think that's very important. So I actually came from Brazil 3 years ago, and when I came, I didn't know anyone in Australia. Basically, I didn't know anyone in my field. So once I started my degree at QUT and I started going to events, and then I got this internship, I actually expanded my network a lot. So I know people these days who I will reach out to in the future, because I will finish my master's in July. So I'll have to look for a job. So I know who I can approach. And one more reason, I think because the internship will be a challenge. So, and we learn a lot when we face new challenge. It can be stressful in the beginning, but I think we are HDR students, so we have good skills, and so going through those challenging situations actually help us to grow, like professionally and also personally.
That's such a good overview of why to undertake an internship. We've got Kamal, who's added a question in the chat. I have an industry-based scholarship. Can my industry sponsor my internship? Yes, they certainly can. You would need to have a chat with them, Kamal, and see if they're interested in hosting you in that additional way. But yes, they certainly can. And Yasara's here and put a very lovely comment into the chat saying that she now feels like she knows where to start in terms of self-sourcing. So I'm glad that was helpful for you. And before we finish, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Juliana for that amazing presentation. I think it was just such a wonderful overview of how you went about self-sourcing, and especially I recognize that we have a lot of international students here today, and I think it's so wonderful to have that perspective of you'd come from Brazil, you didn't know anyone, and just through talking to your supervisor and attending events, that was how it just organically grew into an internship opportunity. So I think that you've created a really great model on how it can be done, but also that real inspiration that that it can be done. And I think my final piece of advice to international students, you know, I understand what it's like when you're moving overseas and maybe you think you can't compete at the same level initially. But I just want to say, don't sell yourself short. You have amazing skill sets and amazing diversity in background and perspectives. And especially in terms of curriculum, universities are trying to train global citizens, and organizations want people with that diversity of background and experience and perspectives. And so please don't sell yourself short and think I can't do it because I'm an international student. You absolutely can. And your skills and your background and your perspective are so valuable. So just give yourself a little confidence boost and get out there and start having those conversations and make an internship happen for yourself. All right, it's 11:30, so we might close the workshop there. I'm just going to quickly put my email address into the chat. There we go, hdr.intern@qut.edu.au. And if you would like to reach out, or if you think of any other questions, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I'll be in touch today or tomorrow with the resources from this workshop. And thank you all so much for attending, and especially thank you to Juliana for giving up your time and sharing your very valuable experience with us. So thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
You're welcome, Susan. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.